Already click the button. You're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DevExchange for November. Today's guest doesn't really need an introduction. Like he's been part of the community and very active. He's actually he actually helped co-found DevCongress. Yeah, his name is Yaw Boakye, but I think he preferred to use Yaw. I don't know. Today I'll leave him to do much of the talking and tell us about himself whilst I ask him your questions. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a great chat with Yao. He's been a very good friend and we've known ourselves for a very long time. I'd say we practically started this journey together and we are where we are now. Yeah. So it's very sensational talking to him, very controversial guy, smart guy, and I'm sure today you're gonna learn a lot about him. So without further ado, welcome, Yao, and thanks for being on the exchange.
Thanks, Francis. Nice hanging out with you all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Listen,
cool.
we've been friends since like 2008, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
yeah,
10.
so doesn't
We're getting old.
yeah, it's good. So what? It's been 10 years.
Yep,
I didn't even think about it like that.
yep. 10 years and some months. Shit.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, well, what can you tell us about yourself? Who is Yawachi?
Oh, good question. Uh, my name is Yao. It means I was born on Thursday. That has been my introduction for a while. Like, my name is Yao. It means I was born on Thursday. Uh, Second of five kids. My parents. Very controversial a little bit because I like to let people know what I think, and it's usually not what everybody else thinks, and so it sometimes gets the title of controversial. But if we're gonna exchange ideas, I think it's fine if someone has an opposing idea or someone has a different idea. I I got into computers. I first got into computers as a little boy. There was a computer school in my neighborhood, and I had a chance to play with them. Did a bunch of shit with it, but it's not anything exciting. I wrote about it on Medium. On my Medium, I have a blog post about it. Took a sabbatical and only returned to it after I saw you programming. That was
No pressure, no pressure.
2010 or so when we were roommates, and then I saw you programming, and then I decided, okay, maybe I should check it out. Well, because it was around the same time that I bought a computer. My dad bought me a computer, and so you were the inspiration that got me into programming because
Ah, I see.
I like the stuff you were doing and the seriousness with which you were doing it, and it's kind of like something else, you know. So it was exciting for me to. And you were a good friend of mine. You've always been a good friend of mine, and I like what you do. So, uh, I knew it was something I could enjoy doing, and of course I enjoyed it. That's basically me, and I've been doing it. Since then until now, with some experience under my belt.
Cool stuff. I'd say that, I mean, in case people are wondering when you started becoming controversial, I'd say that I think since day one, since I've known you, you've always been controversial, even in classroom.
Yeah.
Like you were challenging lecturers and disagreeing with lecturers, and it was quite interesting. Yeah. So I'm really not surprised at all that up to, to up to date you're still controversial and you're always challenging people's ideas, and I find it very refreshing. Sometimes it can be very frustrating, but it's it's also refreshing because it's always interesting seeing like people's perspectives on issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun seeing always hearing the same thing. But when you meet people who are thinking about things differently and being more philosophical, like I mean,
It's something I
it's
do to myself actually. Like I debate with myself if that's possible. I question my own beliefs, and I question the things I hold dear to my heart as philosophies or whatever in life. And every time in my head I have this opposing self, like this belief set, and this is always questioning, trying to punch holes in it. And I think that's the only way to either change my mind about things or to strengthen my position on something. If I can defeat my other self with more logical or reasonable arguments. Sometimes when it comes to faith, I'm not logical or a lot reasonable over there because it's kind of like that's my faith. But anything else, I hold in high suspicion, and so I question. And when I do that to people, it's just something I do to myself, and I'm doing it to you. So instead of you having two parts of your brain argue, you have me as the other person trying to challenge you on your beliefs. And what surprises me is that sometimes you engage people who strongly believe in something like, let's say, climate change. I don't know if you can say you believe or you don't believe in climate change, but someone who has a strong opinion about it, we need to do something about it, and then you oppose them with a little fact that, oh, NASA said that actually there is greener vegetation because of the high uh, percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. How do you explain that? And their reaction is, you wait, you don't believe in climate change? What are you saying? That's not a way to go. It probably means you don't know what you're talking about. And if you live like 200 years ago, you could be convinced that everybody's a witch, and you wouldn't ask for evidence. It's fun if you meet someone who's actually solid on what they believe and they educate you, or you try to punch yours and you go back and forth. I like that. I like that kind of conversation rather than oh yes, man. And oh yes, oh yes. I think that is true. Oh yes, oh yes. It's a
Cool.
fun part of it for me.
So I'm curious, what actually drove you to write your first line of code? I mean, what idea came to mind, or what did you see, or whom did you hear talk that made you say that, okay, this programming thing, I will do some.
It was you. I had I heard of programming, but I also believe that it was something that was done by Microsoft. And because I had used stuff like Word and Excel and other kind of stuff, and you always install. I didn't know how you came by it, so I thought in my head that, oh, this is something that is done by Microsoft, and if you wanna build something like this, you have to go work at Microsoft. Uh, and I held it for a long time until I got to the university and I met you, and this guy in Kumasi somewhere is writing code. It's like, look, it's possible. It's possible. So when I bought my laptop, I decided I wasn't gonna play any games on it, even though I like playing FIFA. I decided I wasn't gonna play any games on it. I wasn't gonna watch any movies. I wasn't gonna do any one of those things because I wanted to be productive with it, and I was gonna learn how to program. And so I went on the internet. I think, wait, if you've forgotten, I think you're the one who told me, go, you find some torrent and you find some programming language.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, torrenting, and I think most of the
So,
software that I used back in the day was
yeah.
gotten off torrents. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I sort of Googled and I found a bunch of programming languages, and PHP was one of them. But then it goes back to me trying to oppose everybody else. Like, oh,
Yeah.
PHP is popular. No, I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna use something that nobody else was using at that time in Kumasi or in Ghana, which was Python. And so I installed it. Basically just to go against the grain. That's how come Python was the language I chose. Just because it's nobody knows it. And maybe people did, but nobody was talking about it back then. So,
Yeah. I
so
mean, I think around that time, Python wasn't,
yeah,
written day to day, and it was mostly I had, used Python. I had written code in Python,
yeah,
but I wasn't doing it as seriously as I was doing PHP, because around that time there weren't things like Heroku, and if you finish writing your Python code, where to host it would also be an issue. You needed to buy a VPS, and around that time, you really don't have money to buy VPS, so you're probably doing some free web hosting service, and so you just need files that you can upload to
yeah.
that service for them to decide for you. And using option, it wasn't something that those services supported. Yeah, so
It's
that was why I'd say that it was very common for people to write PHP than to write Python.
yeah, it's very true what you say. Because I remember clearly my introduction to programming didn't come through web development, even though I saw you doing web development. It was it's probably hard to set up Python somewhere on the internet, and I wasn't advanced enough to bother about it, and so I just followed this book that was like, this is introduction to programming. This is how you loop. This is how you do if. This is how you do all that kind of stuff. And so I was more in the console or in the Python uh, console repo, Python repo, and doing my stuff, like typing out the stuff we found in our manuals and all those kind of things. So the first 2 years of my programming had nothing to do with web. I touched nothing about web development, mainly because Python was my go-to language and it wasn't easy to host, and I wasn't willing to go through the pain of learning how to host it. So that's how it happened for me until 2012, when Heroku was the ish. Like, oh, everybody's doing Heroku, and I went to Heroku.com. And I found out, oh, if you want to host your application on Heroku, you just do this. There's Rails, there's this, that kind of stuff. Okay, let me start Rails. If you want to build a web application, use Rails, and you can do git push Heroku, and you can see it online. Like, really? Let's do that. Let's do that then. So that's how I came to be a Rails developer, because Heroku said it's gonna be easy to host it over there. And so the first years of my programming was mainly just writing code that had nothing to do with web, mainly stuff from my manuals or stuff that I saw online, stuff that I found interesting. And I still believe that should probably be
Cool. Let's talk about problem solving. How do you solve problems? How do you take a problem and break it down and solve it? Because that's really a big thing in our line of work. If you can't solve problems, you're worthless.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. There isn't any nice way to put it. If you can't solve problems that people are willing to pay, you have no business doing this work. Yeah. So tell me, yourself to be able to identify patterns of efficiency.
That's a good question. So so my first approach to problem solving is, and this is something I used to see a lot with my girlfriend. She was a programmer as well, so that I have more time than the problem. So I can spend whatever time I have in the world on the problem, and that calms me down when I see the problem, because I know I have a lot of time to solve it. So no need to panic. Just chill. If you have to read the error, just read the error. If you have to Google something, just Google something. But just know that you have more time than the problem, and you will solve it. That's
Are you sure that's the case? If you're in an interview at Microsoft, you're in a Microsoft interview, you have more time to solve the problem.
yeah. That's a different beast.
That doesn't apply. Okay, I'm glad that we clarified that. That
Yeah,
doesn't apply in this.
that's a different beast. And I mean, I recently interviewed, and I had to write code, and I was given 2 hours, and it wasn't like, it's code that is very well within my domain of problems. Like, I've done this for the last couple of years, but I still felt like, oh, I have 2 hours. Oh, how many minutes do I have left? And that kind of pressure. Interviews are something. they can mess you up, like, just like that. But my approach to solving problems is usually I think it's part intuitive. I don't know. Sometimes the solution comes to me, but it's usually thinking in terms of some primitives, like, how can I use an array? How can I use if? How can I use a map? How can I use, like, some data structure to kind of describe the problem? And how can I transform the problem from that one data structure to another data structure? Usually that's how I see it. And it's hard to articulate what goes on in my mind, but it's usually I learn to program thinking in terms of data structures. And so usually when I hear a problem, I try to find out what is the best fit data structure for this. Like, can I put this in some array? Can I put this in a map? Can I put this in some kind of thing and transform it into another thing? Like, what solution do you want from me? Is the best solution going to be one of those things or not? And I just get at it like one at a time. Let's solve this piece, and then let's solve that piece. So, for example, there are conditions that there are conditions that make the question difficult. Let me give you an example. There is a general solution that you can apply to the problem, and then it works for a certain amount of input. And then you introduce some new input that is a valid input, and you're supposed to get some output, but you don't get it. And then you begin to tweak. But then you find out that there's some line that goes to it. I wish I could articulate this. I wish I could write this down or something of that sort. But most of the approach I use to solve problem comes to me because I probably have experience doing this for a long time. I've taken on problems on my own or something of that sort. Like there's no one uniform way, and I've been on problem solving exercises with people, with my girlfriend, with my friends, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how it counts, but I see the problem, and then we can go little by little by little by little, and then we can find a solution. But it's usually data structures. That's how I think about problems. Like, what data structure fits this, and how can we transform it to another data structure? That's all. And then you can write a function with loops and for loops and something, and that's it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the like you're not so interesting experiences in like interviewing in places. So like let's say at this point I think that you have done a lot of interviews at
Yeah.
various companies.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of can you share some of your experiences interviewing at companies and the some of the terrible experiences that you had so far and how
Oh,
you manage them, like maybe after that interview you felt so terrible about yourself, you felt like okay, you didn't know anything, and how
yeah.
did you deal with all of those things? Because I know that a lot of people are interviewing for all sorts of roles nowadays. Yeah.
So my first big interview fail was with Yelp. That was I think it was in 2013 or so. So I had been fired from Nest for being controversial again. Uh, Nest dismissed me as an EAT. So I just went online and put my application in the Yelp. I was just looking everywhere and then I put my application in it in a bunch of other places, but none of them contacted me because my CV was actually horrible. There was nothing on my CV to prove for it. But Yelp was kind enough to say, hey, let's talk to this guy somewhere. And they started talking to me like, hey, let's do this interview. It's like, yes, I'm ready. Anything I need to know? No, no, it's simple. It's like very simple questions, like basic stuff we do at Yelp. And okay, let's go for it. And they sent me a link to, I think it was HackerRank or so, for the first interview. Like, you're not even seeing a human being. You just have to go through this, and if you pass, then a human being will start talking to you. The CEO is worth it. So I did that, and I passed. It was kind of easy for me. So I had a spare time. They contacted me immediately. When do you want the next interview to be? I scheduled the next interview, and then that was also quite easy for me. I was writing Python, and I hit out the solution. The interviewer was impressed with me, and then I got cocky. I was like, "Oh fuck, it's so easy to interview at these companies." So they said they reached back to me like minutes later after the interview, like, "Hey, you progressed to the next stage. So, what is the when are you available for that interview?" And I scheduled it for the next day. Like, let's go for it. That was stupid. So I said, yeah, let's go for it the next day. It's nothing to worry about. And then the next day, I met this dude. I forgot his name. Uh, and this is and then we started, and he said, his after introduction, this is what I do at Yelp, and so and so. Okay, are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. What is the worst sorting algorithm you can write?
Mhm.
Hmm. Well. that's not what you expect, you know. Like at an interview, you're more towards what is the best source in algorithm we can write. And so, how do you find the opposite? I thought through it and I had no solution. I was like, well, it's probably going to be maybe some exponential. And he said, yeah, but I still have a way worse. Like I have a way worse solution of writing it. So exponential is not the worst. Like what? You have something that's worse, maybe a larger exponential. And he said, no, the algorithm I have can take like the entire time of the universe to sort. And it might not sort it, the universe might even end before it's like, okay, I don't know what it is. What are you talking about? And he said he's just gonna randomly shuffle and see if it's sorted. So you shuffle and then you see if it's sorted. No, it's not. You shuffle again, you see if it's sorted. And I mean, if you're shuffling to sort, you have a God be with you if you have a solution early. And I was like, oh, that's actually smart. I didn't think about it. That should have been my cue that it was going to be the hardest interview that I ever faced. And then he said, "Do you know anything about databases?" I was like, "Yeah, I do. Uh, which database do you use?" "I use Postgres." Okay, let's talk about Postgres." "Okay, that's fine. Ask me anything, fire away." And he said, "How are indexes implemented in Postgres?" What? Wait, what? Wait, did you check my application to see did you read my CV before? But, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. And this was like, I mean, I had been programming for a while, but I hadn't learned much. It was a wake up call for me to learn a lot. But I did terribly on that interview because the questions were kind of computer sciencey a little bit, and
Yeah.
some of them were very deep. So I feel that like after the interview, I knew I had flunked it, but it never got to me because it's like, yeah, it happens, and then you move on, you do another interview or something like that. So I thanked him, and then I moved on. It was a little bit. I wasn't too disappointed in myself that I couldn't answer those questions. I would have been disappointed if the problem that it was in my domain and I couldn't. But right after that, I set myself up to learn as much as I could, like as hard as I could, to to be able to qualify for another job immediately after. I don't know when. Since then, I've been lucky to not have interviewed most of the time because I get offers like, "Hey, do you want to work? Do you want to work with us? Hey, do you want to work for us?" And that lets me skip the whole interview process. And we can talk
Yeah.
about how I got myself into that position. That I get offers from companies, and so I don't have to interview. But there's some interviews that I've done or some interviews that are ongoing, and I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss it.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you can talk about it and wish you good luck.
uh,
It could be somebody who probably is also interviewing at the same company. Then person will probably reach out, share notes and ideas. You never know.
I prefer to. I don't know how it's gonna turn out. So not
Sure.
not how
That's
the interview is gonna turn out, but I don't know how putting this information out there whilst
yeah, that's fine.
it's gonna go. So I will.
Tell me, tell me about how you position yourself to be just called and say that okay, we are. Can you join our team? We want you on our team. What
Uh, so so
how what do you do yourself?
basically, it's for me. It's been more about identifying the kind of things I want to do and putting myself in the internet space for that particular thing. Like I have high score on Stack Overflow for one good answer I made, and everybody's like, I'm voting it, and so I have like some 7,000 points or so. And I haven't
I
been
say
there in a while, but I still get those things. And because of that high score, I get companies contacting me on Stack Overflow. Hey, do you want to come work for us? Hey, do you want to come work for us? The other thing is open source. I have been lucky enough to be able to contribute to Rails, to be able to contribute to Ember, and so it's kind of like something that goes on your you can put on your CV or something. I can say, hey, I'm an Ember contributor, I'm a Rails contributor, but it's more of keeping yourself out in the open. And so when someone knows you from a certain community and they are hiring, they can talk to you like, hey, do you want to Are you willing to join? Or hey, what's up? And you get people recommending you. So for example, I can put it out there that hey, I'm out of jobs, and if anybody's looking for someone to work with, let me know. And someone is gonna message you privately that yeah, this is my company, blah blah blah. Do you want to come work for us? It happened to me a lot in the Ember community that I got a lot of offers because I was talking a lot. Like, and I knew a lot about Ember because I was reading the Ember source code as part of writing the documentation for Ember. You mean documenting it means reading a lot of the code, and so I knew a lot, and I could answer almost any question. So I get a private message like, "Hey, we're hiring for this role, and we think you're fit. This is the salary. Let me know if you're interested." No, I'm not. Thank you very much. But it's a nice thing to be able to have those offers coming in and saying no to them or yes to them. From Stack Overflow, from Slack, from LinkedIn, from friends who know you, from all those kind of places. Uh, it's a way for me to not have to interview because of my nerves and shaking during the interview, making me look bad. But now that I did the work of being in the community, being in open source, it's kind of like yeah, there's something for you to look at if you want to see whether or not I'm good. It takes some kind of knowledge or skill level to be able to contribute to Rails, especially kind of for the size of the open source project. And so you can judge a lot about me by looking at that. It takes some kind of skill and knowledge to be able to first understand Ember source code and to write documentation that people are reading. And so learn as much about me as you can from those two places, and let's see if we're fit or not. But don't put me to test writing Fibonacci uh, because
Okay.
I might not even be able to spell the function name Fibonacci, and that's probably going to fail me, you know. So uh, that's, uh, that's it for me.
So, what question was it that you answered on Stack Overflow that got you so much attention?
It's there's two decorators in Python for making what we call static classes or class methods. There's one
Mm.
called static method and there's one called class method. And why do you need both of them? Why do we need two different decorators for the same thing? And it's a little bit confusing. So it was confusing me as well. But once again, that's the thing. Uh, the answer is always in the source code. The answer is always in the source code that you're struggling with. Be it Laravel, be it Vue, be it React, be it Rails or whatever. The answer is always in the source code. And so I looked in the source code, I found the answer. And then I thought, okay, let me contribute it because maybe not everybody wants to read the source code. And again, having meaningful contribution in most of these communities, for me, has usually come down to being able to read the source code of whatever uh, project or whatever library I'm using. So usually, one of the first things I do when I begin to work on any new project, let's say I join a Rails project, the first thing I do is to clone Rails onto my machine and to look at it from time to time. Like if I'm trying to do something and I can't find how to go about it, like how do you do a has-many relationship? My first solution is usually not to go to Stack Overflow or to Google. I just go into the real source code itself and find out where it belongs to is defined and read the code around it. And usually you find your solution. And the code is usually the source of truth. Until there's very few times that I have to go to Stack Overflow to find out what's happening. I always just look at the code I have. And it doesn't take a lot of knowledge, a lot of Ruby knowledge to read Rails code. It doesn't take a lot of JavaScript knowledge to read Ember code. It doesn't take a lot of Go knowledge to read Go source code. So I just clone them and refer to them instead of going to Stack Overflow. That's my and that's also how you're able to contribute because so my first contribution to Rails was I wanted to Postgres had this new function for generating UUIDs that was in the PG crypto extension and the original what everybody else was using for UUIDs, which is UUID OSSP, was deprecated and there was recommendation don't use it, get rid of it, and that was what Rails was using. And so in much of my Rails projects, I had to enable the extension and use my own function. And I was like, fuck it, that's way too much work. And so I submitted a contribution to Rails to switch from the UUID OSSP to the PG crypto version. That was my first contribution, so that if you use Rails and you generate migration using 5.1 onwards, Now you need to enable PG crypto and you use the generate random UUID. And that's how my first contribution came about. My second contribution to Rails also came about. I did a migration and I renamed a bunch of stuff in the table, a bunch of things on the table, and I looked at the metadata of the table and I found out that the index on the table wasn't renamed. The column was renamed, but the index wasn't renamed, and that's some kind of disparity. So it's obviously a bug. So that was my second contribution to Rails. Like if you rename a column, rename the index as well. And that was
Yeah.
it's basically like I use the software. I see something that's wrong with it. I'll try to fix it. That's it. That's how my contribution has come about. And those are my only two. And I haven't used Rails in a long time until this DevCongress jobs project. So hopefully there will be opportunities to contribute more. But I don't know.
So have you had any bad experiences, contributing to open source?
Like
Some
yeah,
people get attacked or in the open source community. Yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah,
get to work some projects that have mean contributors and you get
yeah,
it gets handed to you. Have you had similar experiences?
yeah. I got it on Rails. that
How do you deal with that?
That was after my first contribution. So it was just a disagreement, but the person who had said the wrong thing is a core contributor. I guess that's why that is because he made a case that this UUID is wrong. It's not valid UUID, but Postgres accepts it. And so I submitted a pull request to get rid of that line from the code because it's invalid UUID version 4, but it's valid UUID. So don't say Postgres is doing stupid shit. Like Postgres is doing what it's supposed to do because what you give to it is UUID, not UUID version 4. There's different versions. And then, yeah, no, 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 no. Okay, get rid of it, and they closed it. But that's okay. But I mean, I got over my shame or my I'm so disgraced. I don't know what to do. I got over that very early with my first post on my first post on Stack Overflow. So
Yeah, that same thing happened to me. I went to ask a question and people like handed it to me. They just and I remember this. Yeah. The people didn't want to answer. They were just telling me to fuck off.
yeah, I got that over there. And there was one time that I thought there was something wrong in Go, so I tried to fix it, and they were like, "Did you read at all?" If you read this at all, you would have found out that
You're a fucking man.
yeah. It's like oh my god. And the other part is everyday fuck ups, like in the communities that I'm part of. Uh, I think I'm sure of something and I say it and then I get corrected immediately. Like, no, it's not that. I'm like, oh, okay. Even Ember, it happens. In Rails, it happens. In Python, it happens. In Go, it happens. I say something like, wait, what? What did you just say? No, there's nothing like that. Apologies, but I'll still come back and talk more. It's, I'm not, you can't get to my mind. It's like I have a separation between myself and my contribution. Like so much, there's a clear separation so much so that you can attack the code and I wouldn't feel offended at all. That's you can look at the code and say this is shit. Like whoever wrote this is probably dumb or something, and I'm not gonna feel it at all. It doesn't get to me. I don't dish it out to people though. But if someone says that about my code, I go for it. Go for it. Whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
And so to stand for my code.
The other thing that I'm curious about, and I hope the audience will also be curious about it, is how do you learn? I mean, uh, you jump through a whole lot of things. You move from one
Yeah,
programming language to the other,
yeah,
use one framework over the other. You
yeah.
know, my curiosity is like I'm very curious. How do you learn? Like, what's your strategy or what approach do you use to learn and stay on top of things?
That's a good question. Uh, I usually uh, The first programming language that I learned was Python because I knew no other programming language, and so this is like also my introduction to programming. Like my mental model of programming was developed by Python, like how to make decisions. And so if I'm thinking about if else, I think I also make like graphical images in my head. And if I'm thinking about if else, it's kind of like, yeah, there's indentations in if else. But that's basically because of my Python background. But apart from that, subsequent languages I've learned passively, like on my own time. There's no pressure. I don't use it for work and that kind of stuff. So I can take my time to learn unless I'm on the job and it's a new language and I have to move to it as quickly as possible. But I also my one of the tricks I use is to train my fingers. For example, I'm learning Rust now, and so what I do is I again clone some project. If the language has like a large standard library like Go, I just use a standard library. But for example, like Rust, I have cloned several, which is the rendering engine or whatever engine behind Firefox. I don't know what it is. I have to read the description again. Um, and then I just type it out. Like I open one random file and just type it out just to have a feel of the syntax. I don't try to understand the code, so I'm just sitting there typing it like 500 lines, 500 lines, just to get a feel of how the language looks like, to train my fingers about how the language looks like, whilst I go through the whole motion of learning how to do if, how to do a loop, how to do all that kind of stuff. But I rely more on my muscle memory, and so much of my training when I'm learning a new programming language is basically typing out existing code from the language to have a feel of what it feels like to type it. I think I have some memory stored in my fingers for that purpose. Like when I'm typing Go, because I did that a lot. I also did that for learning purposes. So in the Go source code, I was typing things in the HTTP, learning more about the HTTP protocol just by typing out what the code does. Oh, this is that. Oh, I don't understand this. Let me go read it, read about it. And so, like I said, you don't need a lot of. Once you can read any programming language, you can answer questions about it with a little bit of context. And so, if I'm reading any Go code, like for example, when I was typing out the HTTP, like, oh, what is this syntax? I don't know what this syntax is. So I go read about it, and then I know that, oh, this is how you do this in Go. But it's something I picked up because I was typing out the whole thing. So two things I learned with practice by typing out existing code and just a little bit of syntax that I need to know. Many of the things I pick up later. I try to see my mind or my knowledge of anything as sort of a map, and it's not linear. So if you take it as sort of like, let's say it's my palm, and this is the whole knowledge you can have about Rails. Uh, I know something here which is probably in the easy part. I know something here which is in the hard part, and I don't know anything here. And so I fill it little by little by working on so many things, and then now my knowledge in Rails is kind of like uniform. It's like, oh, you know a lot, but it's usually haphazard how I acquire my knowledge. I don't fill it up gradually. I don't go that way. I just jump about. And so, for example, there's probably something easy to do in Ruby that I still don't know how to do, but there's something very difficult in Ruby and I know how to do it because I just jump about. That's how I that's how I
Int- That's very interesting. And
and depends on
can
who's
you tell us about where you work? Wait,
come again.
you were saying something. I think I cut in.
No, I said, and who else is paying me?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I have. Well, I used to. I don't know. Maybe
Mhm.
whether it's changed. I used to have like three reasons for learning a technology.
Yeah,
It's because I'm particularly interested in learning or knowing about it,
yeah.
and maybe someone is paying me a good money to learn it. Yeah,
That's always that should be number one.
I've forgotten the other one. I've forgotten the other one. But like, it used to be three. Like when I started out in my career, that was what like something that I lived by. I mean, I would say that you are paying me a good amount of money. Yeah.
The
And
third reason
nowadays,
is if your girlfriend is a programmer and that's what she uses.
yeah, you'll be forced to learn it. Yeah. I haven't been in that situation anyway. Yeah. You probably have that experience. I haven't. Yeah. But yeah, that was what I used to live by. What I want to know is, where are you working now, and how did you secure that role, or like that job, or which places are you working at? Because I know that usually you're working at more than one place at a time. Yeah.
Good question. It's as far as who is paying me goes, it's just one company, hypcloud. They're the only one. They're the only ones who pay me. The other things I do out of love for coding or solving problems. Like my involvement with AF Radio, building the recorder was just pure fun, and I think it was just an opportunity who handed me to write some useful code, and I enjoyed it. I'm grateful to him for giving me that opportunity. I didn't do it because I needed money, but I did it because it was at that time. If I didn't have any problems to solve, I think I was probably gonna die. But yeah, that was a good thing to work on, like to challenge myself. There's other projects I'm involved in, like the DevCongress jobs, which uses Rails. So there's Rails, and as one of my buddies has this platform called chippercash.com. You have to check it out. Uh, it's You can download the app and start using it. Maybe. If you're
Probably.
in Ghana, I don't know if you can start using it, but if you're in Uganda, if Xavier is watching, if you're in Uganda, you can start using Chipper Cash, and that's my buddy's project. It's Node, so I contribute to it in the evening most of the time. That's what I work on. So as far as earning money goes, it's just one source of income, and then the rest is things that I like to do because I like to write code. Code excites me. Did you notice that when I in the beginning when I started writing code, like I will so I think I was one of the early people to have a GitHub account. I have to get my GitHub user ID, like what the number is, and then I would know what was my number when I signed up, because I signed up early. Uh, and then I will put my code over there and save it as a web page and go to a print shop, print the code and
Really
paste it in my room. so
cool.
so in my room I had my code on my wall, and I just lie down and admire like
Yeah.
that's that's some impressive things. But yeah. Uh, for my role, I was contacted by the company. Hey, do you want to write some Elixir review? We know you don't have any experience with either of them, but we see your profile and it looks like you'd be a good fit. Like, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. I've heard I had heard a lot about Elixir thanks to Xavier and his noise in the Slack channel. So yeah, let's go for it. I'm willing to give it a shot, and so I picked it up and ran with it. That's how I also did a bunch of Vue, which I had never worked with. But it's almost the same thing. It's just if you know how to read JavaScript, you can when you're stuck, you can go read the Vue source code. If you know how to read Elixir when you're stuck, you can go read the Elixir source code to see what you need to do. Basically, that's how I move around. So if I know how to read the code, it means I can work in it. I can be productive as early as possible. But frameworks are a different beast because you have to learn new abstractions. Like you have to, uh, how do you how do you query a database using Ecto? It's not something that if you know SQL, it doesn't apply. So those are the little things that you probably have to look at. But then again, it's something you can pick up. Once you know what you want to do, you can find a solution. Like, oh, I want to query the database. Okay, go read how to do it in Excel. Or what I really want to do is I just want to pick the first five of these items, or I want to shuffle this and then pick the first five of what I get. Okay, so how do you shuffle a list, and then how do you pick the first five? Because you know what you want to do. So it's kind of like, let's say you have a problem that says that oh, there's a post and so many people have liked it, but we want you to say one, two, three, four, five, and the total of the rest. You know, like, let's say 10 people like it, we want you to say A, B, C, D, E, and five others like the post. But the A, B, C, D should always keep changing. If I reload the page, it should keep changing. It's there's one thing knowing what to do, and there's another thing not knowing what to do and going to Stack Overflow to find out how do I keep changing the first five things I pick, and that's a that's first a problem definition. But for example, you know that, oh, if you want me to pick just the first five, I will just shuffle and take the first five. Then your problem cuts down to how do I shuffle and how do I take the first five, and it's easy to find those solutions. So that's you can get your way around it, and you won't be unproductive for a long time before you start pushing shipping code to production.
Right. Let's talk about challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've come across, or what are some of the challenges that you have experienced? One as a person,
Mhm.
and also as a programmer or a software engineer. Like, so personally, what are some of the challenges or the struggles that you had, and
Yeah.
career-wise, what are some of the struggles that you had?
Oh, personal challenges. Do you want the real ones or you want the one that I will tell when I'm on the? So some challenges for me. It's some way somehow I have family responsibility and I'm not even married. Which it's a challenge and it's a source of motivation. Like it keeps you on your toes. You need to produce. The other thing is that there was this girl that I love so much. She meant the world to me, and I fucked up, and so we're no longer together. And that was, and I still think
Oh,
about it.
I didn't know that you had this romantic.
Yeah, I still think about it, and it's like,
Yeah, we all have such
move on,
stories.
but you move on. That's what they say. No, you can't move on. Um, um, I, I, I grew up in a kind of poor family. So I have always, I have always, I don't know if that's supposed to be a challenge or that's supposed to be like a good thing for me. Like I've always known what to avoid and I've always known what I don't want to reach into. And I've always wanted to rely on myself, be able to produce for myself, not rely on anybody or the government. If if my if my uh, if my views on things like welfare and social justice and all that kind of thing uh, means anything to you, it's just someone who was worked their way out of poverty and telling people, don't try to pretend you're gonna help me. I can help myself. It's basically that's where it's from. Like I struggled a lot in my childhood because of this reason that you there was not it's the basic things you have when you are when you grow up in a poor home, like basic challenges. Uh, skipping school for no good reason, skipping skipping lunch or dinner for no good reason. Other than that, there's nothing available. But it has also taught me not to be excited about money. Like, I easily part with my money. Like I let my money go because I have no respect for it. Like it's not something that I want to have a lot of, and it's not something that I'm able to earn money as and when I want, and so I'm not scared of losing it because I know that I can make more when I need to make more. Um, it's been my worldview has been shaped by that, and my family who took the poverty in good stride and tried to shield us from it, even though you feel it from time to time. That has been my personal struggle. Uh, but as far as as far as love, family, yes, I have it. I'm still religious. I believe in God. Uh, it's so about religion, but I believe in God, and I need to get back to it. But yeah, life is uh, life is something else, Francis. It's but you have to smile all the time.
Yeah, you know.
Remember to smile, and you need to have someone to love and someone to love you back.
Yeah,
That is key
that's very important.
in my programming.
I mean, life is not all about computers and keyboards and like
Yeah.
you need to be human sometimes. So,
Eventually, you have to have a family. Eventually, you need people around you. Like,
so write
um,
code, be a programmer, but be a programmer with life. Yeah,
yeah,
with
yeah. As far as programming goes, my I've been lucky to not be out of job and be frantic looking for a job. I've been lucky to be able to work hard. Surprise, surprise, but not everybody is able to work hard. I've been lucky to be able to put things off. I, I can put off entertainment, put off enjoyment for a while just to hit a goal, hit a target. Uh, I've been lucky to be able to set a target and achieve it. Like I want to earn this amount of money by this time, and I will be able to do it. Like I want to be paid this amount of salary. I want to contribute to Rails. I want to contribute to Ember. I want this to happen, and I want that to happen. And I've been lucky to be able to work hard. I've been lucky to be able to have the lifestyle that allows me to achieve those kind of things. It's not it doesn't come to everybody, so I just think that I've been lucky to have it.
yep. So yeah, you were going to talk about some of the challenges that you had as like in your career.
Yeah, I've been unfortunate to work with some douches sometimes. you know, uh, and that has taught me some difference between what I call late stage engineers and early stage engineers. Like I'm not, I like high quality code, but that is if I'm working on a project that is meaningless, then I can go down and be like, yes, this code has to be that way. It has to be that way. Like let's do everything that good programmers are supposed to do. But when there is a business context to it, when we're building this as a business, when we have customers paying for it, I want to lower my guard and let everything go, like until we actually hit a snag and then we have to fix it. But I've worked with people in startups who they go all the way down to thinking about how many database requests we are making, and at that point, you know how many customers we have? Zero. So misplaced priorities. Don't give a fuck about that. Build enough features to attract people, and then if these things become bottleneck, we can go back to fix it. That's a good thing to have that as bottleneck. Like DHH was on the internet, was on Twitter a couple of days ago saying how much he's sorry, how much he regrets that uh, he had to migrate, he had to alter the database so that the ID is now a big int, not an integer, because
Yeah.
they reach like 2 billion or so rows. You know what that means? That's a lot of money, Like that's a good problem to have, like to be able to have that problem and be apologetic about it. So I saw his apology, and the only thing I could think about was like, man, this dude is successful. And some problems only come to successful people. It doesn't come to poor people or people who are not successful. And I used to joke about this a lot, that there's some branch in some code that has never run. In there's some, like, for example, you write an application and you have a feature that is for only paid customers. If you don't have any paid customers, that code
Because
never run. I make fun about it. Like, yeah, there's some code that has never been run in my application before because it's there for paying customers and I have zero paying customers. And so that code is it's written, it's well tested, but nobody cares about it. My challenge has been mainly that, like, working with people who are very emotional about their code, or Well, let's stage and lose focus. Like I'm willing to let anything go that does the job, and then if it really becomes a problem, then we can revisit it. But I'm not gonna go for immediate optimization, like a quick fix. No, a quick fix is fine. I'm not gonna go for immediate optimization. Like, let's make sure this thing works and all the back and forth on it. I'm not down for it. But people I've worked with in the past, that has been my biggest challenge. Also, writing tests. I don't like writing tests, so it's a little bit like
So is this stemming out? Is this feeling stemming out of the movement of writing or doing TDD? Maybe a lot of people are moving towards testing their code, and so you being you, you
yeah.
decided to go the opposite direction.
No, it's not. It's more of I don't trust tests. There's this anytime we have a bug in our code that was tested, uh, I laugh out loud like ha 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 ha. What that was supposed to be caught by the test, but the same person who wrote the code is usually the same person who wrote the test, and so let me get another thing. The test has to be patched. I mean, on the jobs board, I'm the first person to demand that test be written for any new feature. There's something that is failing, and someone submitted a PR that actually fixes it. But I'm holding on to it and waiting until we have tests that actually proves that that fixes it before we merge it. So I'm not anti-test, but it's kind of like this relationship with it. Good is not good. Let's make some money, basically. Whatever gives us the money. I'm not here to feel good about yes,
Mm.
100% coverage. Yes, 100% coverage at zero users is meaningless. So,
What about entrepreneurship? Because I know that you had quite a run with entrepreneurship, like you being at Nest for
yeah.
what, years,
I was
and
fired. I told you this.
yeah, you're fired and you go back, like you go back to be a fellow, like you were fired as an EIT, then you go back as a fellow. That's a big thing. That's a good firing. It's not a
Yeah,
bad fire.
yeah.
If it was a bad fire, you wouldn't have gone. So it's not even a layoff. Yeah,
I,
just maybe they couldn't contain you at the time. I say that's it.
I will start my own thing at some point in my life. Maybe in software, maybe not in software, but that's definitely something I will do. I will start my own thing.
Right.
Okay.
And so
Uh,
currently, what would you say?
wait. I'll see if there is if someone is willing to buy DevCongress, and that's gonna be my big break.
I am putting the Congress on sale. Man, you can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what will you say? What will you say is favorite programming now? Quite a lot of them. What would you say is your favorite one?
Python, hands down.
How much Python do you do of late? Do you do a lot of
Zero.
Python? You?
Uh, I bought a book on probability, and I've just followed through with Python. So
When you were talking about how you learn, you didn't mention a book, but I know you're very big on books. Like when you want to learn something, you get a book and you go through the book, and
yeah.
I've seen some of the books that you have, and I mean I think even some of them have led me to buy like I saw you had a copy, and I also went to get a copy. So I didn't hear you talk about books. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a bunch of them, like from history through philosophy, mathematics, biographies, and then in programming. The programming books I like to read are those that were written maybe 10, 20 years ago. Uh, if it's written now, it's most likely in JavaScript and it's not good a month from now.
So whatever you do, don't buy a JavaScript book.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's, if it's about some framework as well, it's not gonna be good in like 2 months or 3 months. I was I was one of the reviewers of Rails 4 in Action. It's a Manning book. I was part of the reviewers, which was yeah, that was a cool thing for me as well. Uh, and that book had to constantly undergo review because things were changing in Rails like crazy. So I don't bother myself with those kind of things. I would rather read something like uh, domain-driven design or things like programming pearls or what do I have? A bunch of other books, the art of programming and all those kind of things. That's the kind of things I'll read or read some book on philosophy and try to convince myself that yeah it applies to programming. Read books about systems. Uh, this is actually a good book. I think you should look at it. It's this book is nice. If you want to, yeah,
Cool.
it's a nice book about systems. It's a fun read because it's kind of like why programs don't work, and it's you laugh at yourself like, yeah, you write the code and the code doesn't work. It's just a system that is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
There's also I also because there's some channels there's some online communities that I'm part of, and every day in my journal, so I have a notebook that I write stuff in, and every day in my journal I have this section that I write random things I learned on the internet, and it's
Mm.
just maybe for example, when I hang out in Go and then someone says something that I never knew about, let's say HTTP, like they say, oh, yeah, you can seek to this part of HTTP, the response and do blah blah blah. Like this, or this is something I never knew. So I write it down, and when I'm going to bed, I read the random things on the internet that I learned today, just by hanging out in those communities. And it's usually not a lot of stuff, but it's something that you say it and you appear smart. It's all about perception, you know.
Yes, Major Key.
You have to yeah. So that's about it as well.
Right. And I know that you're very, I don't know how, what the word to use. You're big on using Vim. Do you still do that? Do you still use Vim?
Yeah, yeah. I use Vim. I still do.
Like of late, can you describe how your development environment is like? I don't know whether you're still using all Vim or you combine it with other tools.
No, I just use Vim. I because the languages that I use, you don't need an IDE. Uh,
Okay.
like I write all my Go in Vim. I write all my Elixir in Vim. I write all my JavaScript in Vim. I write all my Ruby in Vim. Uh, everything is in Vim. I use Vim, but I have VS Code installed as well. So sometimes sometimes it's I get tired of working on the code, and it's actually that I'm tired of the Vim environment and tired of the color scheme. So I open the same code in VS Code and I can continue working on it. I don't know, but it works. It works that way. Like, yeah, it happens a lot when I'm like at my I can't continue, and then I say, okay, let me open it in Vim. Let me open it in VS Code, and it's like beautiful font, like beautiful color scheme. Oh
Yeah.
dear, oh dear. Let's type more. Let's type more. And those ones are usually bugs.
Now Vim can help you resolve your bugs. It's VS Code. They will help you resolve your bugs.
Yeah. That's
All right.
but it's usually Vim that I use. I think I at some point just sanctioned myself to use Vim, like uninstalled everything. I'm kind of um, what do they call those kind of? Is it like ascetic or masochist or whatever? But I kind of like put myself under pain, like uninstall Sublime, uninstall anything else, and it's just Vim that I have, and it's Vim that you're going to use.
Yeah, you'll be forced to use it.
Yeah. So I did that for a long time, and now it's kind of second nature to me.
That's a cool tip. Yeah. Force yourself to use the things that you think will be good for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
PHP. I didn't take PHP.
Right. So I have let me just go to the Q&As I have so far. I have so seeing Andrew makes me a little bit confused whether it's Beckwith or it's
Yeah,
Smith. Because I have a question coming from Andrew, which could have as well like it can come from Beckwith. It also can come from Smith. So I'm gonna go with this one is coming from Andrew Smith. Beckwith, I haven't heard from him in a while. Yeah.
yeah.
But
He's.
Andrew,
I was talking to him today. He's hanging somewhere.
I see. I don't think he joined us. I don't think he joined us today.
No,
Yeah.
he's on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew wants to find out what is your real name. I did some research and I found out it's not even Yao. So what is it?
No, my real name is yeah. Come on. You know, we're in school. You saw my name.
Yeah, no. I don't know what he's talking about, but yeah. He knows what he knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next question that he has is what made you start Dev Congress?
Oh, that's an interesting story. So that was like 2013, and uh, I was getting out onto the internet a little bit, and I saw this guy who was writing a book on jQuery. I was like, oh, that's a god! Like to write a book on jQuery, you need to know a bunch of stuff about jQuery. Like, who would attempt to write a book on jQuery when they know nothing about jQuery? And so I was stalking him on the internet, like I was looking at his GitHub all the time and seeing stuff. And I saw that he had written a little regular expression parser, sort of like it's you can have it in your browser, and then you type it out, and then it does stuff like something like Rubula.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the code and reading it, and I found out he had done something that was not optimal. As in, anytime you press a key, like regardless of how quickly you're typing, he's firing off events like, oh, get it, like all that
Uh,
kind of stuff. And it wasn't cool. So I submitted a pull request. It goes all the way back. So I submitted a pull request and said, hey, how about you batch the event so that if the person is typing quickly, you wait until there's a this is popular technique recently that everybody's doing, like the bouncing or throttling or whatever name they're giving to it in the age
I
of
think they bounce, or I think they have there's a funny name for it.
the bounce, the popular name they're giving to it in the age of React. I should have named it and put, but everybody was doing it and they're calling it batch processing or something of that sort. So I submitted it and he was like, wait, what's going on? Like he was asking me for a little bit of explanation or something of that sort. Like, and then it hit me like, wait, this guy is writing a book about jQuery and this beats him. That was the first instance. The second instance was, I don't know if you know this guy. His name is Brad Frost or Brad Frost or something. Anybody who does front,
Yeah,
knows.
I'm familiar with Brad.
Yeah. He started a repository and he posted about it like, oh, this is masking credit card numbers. So if you want to mask a credit card number, you can use this. And then I looked at the code. It was also on GitHub, and I saw a bunch of things that could be improved. So I did all the stuff, like all the improvement, and then I shipped it. I submitted a pull request and said, hey, look at this. It's probably gonna do what you need. It does this. It pulls this out. And I was new to all this open source contribution, and so my pull requests were usually kind of like changing the whole idea of like you have your goals, you have your reasons for making some decisions, but I submit a pull request and it's kind of like overruling your ideas and putting new ones in there that I thought were simpler. And it also got over his head a little bit, and he said, wait, by the way, I'm just taking inspiration from this, and so I think your pull request belongs over there. Take a look at it. And I got positive feedback from the original guys he got the inspiration from, and I was supposed to follow through with it, but I didn't. And then it hit me that, wait, these are people that I probably saw as way above me, but it turns out that it's not really like that. It's just you know something and then you can apply it, and then everybody sees you like, oh yeah, you can do something. And so I thought I wasn't the only person in this condition. There's a lot of people in the same condition in Ghana. And so how about we try to connect, we try to put our voice out there, like we can do stuff. We can also write jQuery books, we can write books on Angular, we can write books on Ember or Vue. Like how do we pump some activity into like what the Nigerians are doing lately. How do we pump some activity into what we do over here so that it's out there? So I told this to a bunch of friends, but the only two who got on with me were Claude and Elon. Both of them are left-handed as me as well. So all the three co-founders of DevCongress are left-handed.
That's a very interesting fact.
Yeah,
Fun fact.
all three of us are left-handed, and that's how we started. The main goal was to one be a community for developers, but also project like push up push it up from it was we thought it was nascent, so maybe let it go up so that it's kind of like obvious and everybody you don't have to bend down to see the developers. You can see us either at your eye level or you look up and then you can see us, which is a good sign. And that's what we are aiming towards.
Cool. I was gonna tweet something and you finished answering the question. So let me ask you the next question that Andrew is asking, or he wants to know what is the goal of Dev Congress. I think that was captured in your answer just now, right? Can you quickly talk about the goal for Dev Congress?
To be frank, this what Def Congress has become now is not anything that I could dream of or anything that I could think of. It's majorly uh, when Andrew Silentworks stepped in. That's like a rocket engine. To be fair, I was thinking to myself like, oh, this is going to happen, and we're going to have something like the Def Congress and For Loop and all those kind of guys are gonna have a congress, and who is most qualified to give a talk about this? And then they're gonna say, yeah, it should be one of the founders of Dev Congress because it's larger than the rest and that kind of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, there's nobody more qualified than Andrew Smith to give this talk. Like, not even me. The amount of work that he has put in, Jesus Christ.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah,
he's,
a rock.
he's the spiritual leader of Dev Congress. And so
I think he's joined the community with a lot of experience and
yeah, he's the best person to answer the question. If he's the person asking it, I think it's a trap for me. He's best qualified to answer. But I don't know any direction that it goes. He's doing a great job so far. Like I like what I see. And if that's what he wants, that's fine. He has been the major force behind it, like single-handedly, time, money, everything he can think of. Like, he's a person to look out for and ask what is the future of the Congress or what shall we become.
okay. Andrew, you asked this question and you've been tasked to answer that question yourself. Good stuff. He has another question for you. It's really on to you. Andrew has another question. He's asking, you disappeared for a few months. Where did you go and why did you go?
Uh, I usually get hit with depression from time to time, so I need to back off a little bit, like and think through life. I don't know. I don't want to think it's unique to me. I think everybody gets it with depression, like where they feel one they are worthless, two everything they're doing is worthless as well. Like you picture software development and you don't see any goal in it. Like you don't see how it's contributing meaningfully to the things that is most important to humanity. And sometimes it makes me extremely sad. Not suicidal, but it hits me so hard that I just take a break from everything. Uh, I researched a little bit and it was like, yeah, that can be subsided if you like, it can be reduced if you take some supplements. And so I went down that approach of like I take some magnesium supplements or some vitamins and that kind of stuff to see how it helps. But it's usually anytime I withdraw from work, from relationships, from life, it's basically uh, an episode of depression, and it's more frequent than you think. Uh, That's an honest admission.
Right.
I just want to be on my own sometimes, like into things to see whether it's all worth it.
Well, that makes sense. I have another question from okay, well, not from Andrew, but I have a question from Josh.
Yeah.
Josh wants to find out how good is your German now.
Uh, I can speak a little bit.
So how will you say how are you in German?
Uh, we get there or we get us
Eh?
we get.
We get cool. Another question. A question is coming from Paya. Paya wants to find out what particular contribution did you make to Rails? Can you show us the PR? Yeah, I think okay.
When
That is
we
something I can put in the description. Mm, mm,
okay.
yeah. I have a question from Edward Pai. Fellow brethren or brethren from Berlin. Yeah. Okay. So Pi wants to find out how would you interview a candidate for a developer role?
Yeah, this is really hard, and I don't like to see people sad or feel dejected, feel like they don't know what they're doing. So I usually I like to provide as much information about the nature of the question that they will be solving like ahead of time and tell them what things they need to prepare, and then together we work through the solution or we work through the solution they have in mind. But I look out more for how articulate they are in their communication or how they can describe the problem, uh, because it's really and and Pi knows this like if you what makes an engineer someone who is able to bring out a solution. I mean, over time the solution is going to get better, and if they're able to give you a solution, I think that is what you look out for, especially how they're able to find a solution and spots where they probably think there could be some improvement, but and whether or not they what their responsibilities in life are. Because someone probably needs a job because they have family to take care of and they're out of job, and you can be their savior or something of that sort. But I like to see your ability to find solutions, not only from your head but also from the internet. How you're able to repeat the question to me and give me sample inputs and sample output on your own, and that's kind of something that I admire a lot. It's kind of if we can communicate, we can bring together a solution. Because this person that I'm interviewing can pose me a question as well, and I probably won't be able to answer. But I'm on the side where I get to interview him, and I shouldn't let him or her feel like uh, yeah, so they they don't know what they're about. Ultimately, they want to help, and ultimately they have family to feed. Or this I don't know. I haven't found one thing that works, but I'm more in favor of erring on the side of hiring someone than not than saying no to them. And that's how I ended up with Andrew Berkowitz. But there are some people that outright I wrote them off. So I interviewed someone before when I was at Mess, and I was interviewing them for the role, and so it was I told them, because I said, over here, you're going to teach a lot about web development. And so we're going to look at the HTTP codes and then describe a scenario. And then you tell me which one of them is going to be appropriate. So bring it up on your screen. I said, okay, so for example, if someone creates a new resource, which one of them will be appropriate to return? And he said, yeah, you're going to return 200. Okay. Like, yeah, 200. Okay, is fit, but look and see if there's another one that fits more the situation. And we're both looking at it. We're both looking at it. We have all the time. And there's 201 created. He didn't say it, and he was like, 200, okay, it's, that's what you're gonna return. I was like, but there's also 201 created. What do you think about that? No, it doesn't make sense to return to uncreated. You can return 200. That's what everybody does. Like if you return to one, okay, you're going against that. Like what? You probably are not going to learn either. So I don't know. But, that's how I interview. I see if we are compatible. If you can find a solution, anything else will come.
Cool. And Duati is asking, are CTOs necessarily the best programmers in a startup?
I think a CTO is usually one of the founders.
Mhm.
And I mean, if the startup gets big, you're probably going to hire better engineers, but you get to keep the CTO role because you took the risk to start a company. But
Mm,
among the founders, the CTO is usually the person who can code. But if the company gets big and if he or she maintains their role, then it's this. But then if they move on and you're hiring a new CTO, you probably want to hire someone with. I have never been a CTO, and I've worked with CTOs who were who are CTOs because they were originally part of the co-founders and they kept their role. But I mean, if you're a CTO, you know what's good for your company, and you know you should be humble enough to hire people better than you to work on the project. If you're going to hire someone with a lot of experience, let's say you're going to hire former Google employee, former Facebook employee, they're probably going to be good at one thing more than you are, and that should be fine. Mhm.
Another question from Duati is asking, have you had to incubate, inculcate TDD in an organization without it before? Where do you begin?
This is a question for Adam. Okay, I'm slowly introducing TDD on the DevCongress jobs, but it's a pretty small project. But I have this thing that TDD is something you do on weekends when you're not critical code, right? But Adam has more experience. I think you can ask in DevCongress, and then he would know what to say. As far as TDD goes, I don't know anybody who is as religious as him, who has more experience as him. Maybe other people do, but not me. Not I'm the wrong person. So you should talk to him instead.
Run through that I've had. Do you have something that you want to add? We can do that and wrap it up.
What did you say?
I'm saying that I've run out of the questions, so the Q&A it's done now. But I'm
Okay.
just curious. Do you have something that you want to demo to us? Before we wrap it up.
You want me to share my screen to show you something?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I can show Payal my Rails contribution, and then I can show I pulled out something little from the the AF radio recorder, the function that we use for retrying. There's a bunch of things we do, and then sometimes we have to retry. So I pull it out into its own package, and I can show that as well. Uh,
All right, that'll be cool.
but no typing. Thank God, no typing. So wait, how do I share my screen?
I think you should see at the top over there. Yeah, you should. When you hover your mouse over the screen, you
Oh,
should see.
let me see if I have nothing to hide. Wait. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Application. There it is. Whoa, the instruction.
So you just go to a different tab, and that'll be fine. Yeah.
Is it up to me?
So it's better now.
All right, so that's all I have to zoom in. Is this okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the pull request and search for my name. Ooh, So this was the first one. For Postgres above 9.4, use gen random UID. And this is the explanation I wrote, like all of that. And this is the code changes. And then you can put your name there. That's how your name appears. So this was my first contribution, and this guy was super helpful, going back and forth. Yeah, you have to use the Rails migration 5 onwards. But this was basically my first contribution, so that unnecessary else. So that was my first contribution to Rails, and that was a couple of maybe 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. It was merged a while back, and then what else? Oh, this was not. No. Oh yeah, there's foreclosed. I can't find the one that says you should rename a table. Can't find it. Wait, why am I part of this? Can I say anything here? Give me a second. Oh yeah, I said something. I commented about this. That's fine. I can't find the other one. Screw me. No, I don't want it to be. I don't want the closed one. I don't know. Maybe GitHub is not showing it. But that's why it's gonna show this and not show that. So it's fine. All right, so I'm gonna show you the little thing I did. It's also kind of like I'm exploring a bunch of stuff with this. So there's it's useful if you have a function and you want to run it and you want to retry it a couple of times. So you use this, it's Go. I just have this, it's called a manifest, the function you want to run, the number of times you want to retry, and the backup strategies. And this is for internal use, like we count the number of tries, and then once it's been used, you can't use it again. You have to create a new one. So this like, how many times have you tried it? This function returns that to you, and have we exhausted it? Is our number of tries equals the maximum number of retries that we can do? And this is, it backs off and it uses a backup strategy. I'll show you what the backup strategy is, and then it just sleeps basically. Anyway, it's open source. You can look at it into details what it does, but it just keeps going on, and then runs a function, and then it says if the error is nil or the tries have been exhausted, please break, and we can return the result and the error from the function. So if the error is nil, it means the function passed, and so we can stop. We don't have to continue trying. And if the number of tries is equal to the number of maximum retries that we set, then we don't also have to continue. We just end it. If none of this is true, but we still have more tries, then we back off. And in the back off, I put, there is two backups now. So the backup strategy is an interface, and then it just says how long we should sleep for, which is what I call the wait duration. So there's exponential backoff, and then there is linear backoff. And exponential backoff means you have to wait. So if it breaks, you wait 1 second, and the next you wait 2 seconds, and then next you wait 4, and then you wait. What's the square of 4? Just like that onwards, and then you keep waiting. And linear, you just wait like a predictable amount of time. And they both, this is some Go-ish thing. So in Go, the interface, you don't have to say that a type satisfy an interface. You just have to implement the method here, and then the type automatically implements the interface. And so I have exponential and linear. If anybody, let's say there's random, where you wait a random number of seconds or random number of milliseconds, and then you can use it. So that is it. And then I was trying to replicate the go timer, how it works. So this is something that if you want to retry a function, but I put a note over here that it's very over engineered. This is the simple solution you want. But if you still want to use mine, go for it. It also provides a manifest for a function that you want to retry and how long you want to wait. And this timer is just for code concurrency stuff. So you can create a new interval, tell it how long you want to wait for, and then the function. It's kind of like set interval in JavaScript, where you run something at a certain interval for a certain number of times. You can start it, and then once it's starting, you can't restart it, but you can stop it. And it's just, this is the timer thing. It's kind of like telling the function, okay, start another one, okay, start another one, okay, start another one. Then it happens over here until it's no longer running. And if it's no longer running, it means you call stop on it. If you stop the timer, then it's no longer going to run. So you create a timer, and then you create an interval, and then you use it that way. But this is very over engineered, basically because I was trying to see if I can implement timers in my own way. But this is the simple solution for what I was doing. If anybody wants to do it, and this is what we actually do in AF Radio. So this we don't use in AF Radio. We only use this guy in AF Radio. It's pretty simple code for anybody who wants to look at it. It's tested, so you can look at the test and see what's going on as well. Is this one tested? I think so. Yeah, it's tested. So I'll look at what is going on. I might be.
Why are you testing this one?
What?
Why are you testing this one?
Why am I testing this?
Yeah.
Because we use it in AF Radio. But if it were my own, if I wasn't,
you trust this test?
Yeah. I test a bunch of things. Like for example, I test that when the maximum retries are done, the function is not run anymore. I test where the function passes before the maximum retries, and so the maximum retry should be less than the number of retries. There's a funny way of testing Go, which is that you say if this is equal to this, then give me this error. Whereas in most languages you say that assert that number of tries is less than this, but in Go it's a little bit the opposite. How you test stuff. Maybe I'm the one not using it well. And then I test that you can't use the manifest more than once. Maybe there should be a way to say restart the manifest or something of that sort, but it's not expensive to create a new one, so it's Go. It's easy. And then I was testing that. This test I wrote later, to be fair, or maybe I corrected it later. But there was a bug somewhere, and I didn't know what was happening. I think it was on this line. I was doing something that wasn't appropriate, and so the code wasn't working. And so when I fixed it, then I added the test for it. So it's like kind of like this is supposed to work, and it's supposed to get what you're supposed to get. But that is it. What else? That's basically the only Go project that I have going on. The other thing is I also, yes, shameless plug. I started blogging, so if anybody wants to read some things about Rust, some things about Rails active records, some things about function parameters, this is an opinion piece I wrote about how to do functions and parameters to functions. It actually got me into a lot of back and forth with Rails people because I used Ruby in the example and I was bashing Rails or Ruby. So it's also just an opinion, and this was my exploration into what how strings are implemented in Go. I will keep writing. My goal this week is to write a middleware library for Go. Like if you're building an HTTP server and you need some middleware to run over all your requests or your response, my goal this weekend is to write an HTTP server, a middleware library for that purpose. Mainly because I like the word midriff. and so and so I intend to use that as a package name. So that's basically it. I'm shocked I didn't see my my other Rails contribution, but that's fine. And whilst you're here, you can also see we have this, and we're making a little bit of progress on it. So if anybody, oh, we found potential vulnerabilities. So if anybody wants to contribute, I'll go for it. It's still in the infancy.
So why are you calling that repository R?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would you call it instead?
Huh?
What would you call it instead?
I don't know. But I'm curious why it's called R. What does the R represent? Is it that you were too lazy to think of a name to give the package than R?
Oh, it's kind of like
Or
retry.
it's like we tried and decided to do
Yeah.
R?
Yeah. I tried to write a little bit of an example. I don't know if this code works. I didn't run it. So if you, if you copy and paste into some place and run it, it probably will, probably won't, but it should. It's fine. Uh, that's basically that's my my exploration to go. Yeah. What else was I going to show? I think I guess that's it. I have nothing else to show. Yeah, this is the stuff I talked about by this guy. And I've had a few. Whoa, okay, there's some private stuff. How do I can stop sharing the screen now?
Yeah, you can stop sharing the screen now.
Or if anybody has any question about what I showed, but it's pretty straightforward Go code to read. Nothing impressive, nothing magical happening over there. It's just I would have oh dear, I would have loved to show if I had time, I would have loved to show the other stuff that I intended to work on. We have
Oh,
it.
awesome. So I think we've been at this for quite some time. I think we've run like what, 90 minutes, a little bit over 90 minutes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh, yeah. I've really enjoyed the session. I don't know whether there is anything else you want to add. Trying to see whether I have a question here, but I don't have any question. I think the question that I have is how is the beer in Germany, sir? Always asking
Um,
the beer in Germany is, yeah.
who is asking?
In Duarte. I don't know. Am I mentioning the name correctly? It's a
Yeah,
Kenyan name, right?
yeah. You can't mention that name wrong. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Wherever you mention it is right.
Yeah. All right. So thanks everybody for making a time to join us on the exchange today. It was really packed with information, and it's going to take a while to digest most of these things. So I'd suggest you go back rewatch and learn. And I mean, anytime you can reach out to Yaw or myself if you have questions. Yeah. Until
Yeah.
then, if you don't have anything to say or you have something to say.
I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to be on this show. You're doing a fantastic job. Like for someone who is just getting into this stuff. I think you make a great interviewer. You make a great host, and maybe you wanna look at this seriously.
Thank you.
See how far you
You're
can.
probably I should go into journalism, eh?
If the code doesn't go, we have everybody should have backup. I'm going to be a baba, so you should have what you're going to do if the code doesn't go. But all in all, I appreciate the nature of the questions and the conversation. It's it's pretty good, and I'm happy that we're able to have this conversation. I also want to take this opportunity, like request for 3 songs, that kind of stuff. I also want to
Mm,
take this opportunity to say a big thank you to Andrew for everything he's doing for DevCongress. It's beyond my wildest imaginations, and I can't thank him enough. Everybody else is contributing, Adam, Tony Mobster, who is secretly behind the scene, all the admins and all the new guys who are in there make it comfortable for them. They make it easy for them. Uh, I hope someone does other amazing things like you're doing, also Andrew is doing in the space of DevCongress or out of DevCongress. But all in all, I'm happy for what we have achieved together, and I'm very proud. I'm proud of what is happening, and we can only forge on. We can only forge on. We just started.
Good stuff. Yeah. On that note, guys, we are out. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have fun. See you
Bye.
next